This is Zash Raymond, and you are listening to the Fulham Focus podcast.
Fulham. Baby, you're a firework. Come on, let your colours burst. Make 'em go, oh, oh, oh. You're going to leave Fulham falling down, down, down. A Bonfire Night poem by Jmac. Welcome to the Fulham Focus podcast. My name is Jmac, of course, your host, live from a hipster coffee shop, drinking an oat milk cortado and refusing to be served a plastic lid. Right, I called it right again, didn't I? I said last pod I couldn't tell if we were going to lose or draw this one. Complete and utter hullabaloo. One week it's Scott Parker out, another it's Super Scott, and now it's Parker out again. Join me, Matt Domm, and Marty Ward to discuss this terrible result and a terrible weekend for sport in general. Here we go. Fulham. Right, well, I'm not sure if you heard that. I certainly did. Did you hear that, Matt Domm? I mean, what an absolutely disgusting thing to hear.
Well, you've ruined my Monday night now as well as my weekend, so thanks for that. I mean, that's the worst thing.
It's terrible, isn't it?
Football fans to hear, isn't it? At your home ground, losing 3-0 and then...
Marty, have you seen
I've got
this?
nothing to say.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have the terrible video that they did. It'd probably be better off to Eye of the Tiger.
I mean, I think it would have been... I don't get it. They start using their paws. They start, clawing. They start doing this clawing action as they sing it. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Grown men who have wives and children must have had are doing that. And I mean, I can't work out if without that if it would be reasonable. I think it's a fairly decent chant, isn't it?
I don't
but then
know.
you ruin it with the Tony the Tiger bollocks.
It would be funnier if they all started jumping up and down and started singing the wonderful thing about Tiggers, you know. But that would be good. But excellent. All right, guys, let's talk about this awful football match. All right, we'll start with the lineup. So everything, I don't know. We went for, it said on paper it was a 4-2-3-1. We had Harrison Reed and Johansson as a sort of double pivot, whatever the fuck that means. But yes, Knockaert remained on the bench and Bobby Reed started again, but only lasted a half and, still hasn't scored. I mean, would you agree that Scott Parker still hasn't decided on his first choice front three, Mr. Domm? I mean, to have, Knockaert on the bench shows as a collective management failing, don't you think, potentially?
I think so, yeah. I thought he had decided. I mean, as good as Bobby Reed is and has been in this league in the last few years, I think it has to be Cav and Knockaert, doesn't it? I mean, they've shown enough, I think, earlier in the season that they can, if they're on their day, they can tear teams apart. But he almost seems to be trying to fit Bobby Reed in just for the fact that he hasn't played very much. And I think we've discussed in the pod before, I think a lot of us agree that Bobby Reed potentially is one of our best 11 players, but it doesn't seem to work. The whole team doesn't seem to work together when he's there. He's being fit in positions where he's not comfortable. And I'd just rather, play two wingers and a striker in that formation.
Yeah. I mean, Marty, what are your thoughts? I mean, is Bobby Reed now done for, do you think, as a winger, or do you reckon we'll see him there again? It is the sort of scattergun sort of feeling that we have more players than we need in certain positions. And it just feels like, once again, Knockaert on the bench shouldn't really be happening, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
It's like the kind of a broken record. We still don't know who Scott Parker's best 11 is.
Maybe he doesn't either.
Yeah, exactly. And we're this far into the season, we still don't know. And it's kind of like the scenario with the England football team. You have all these quality players, but you've got to play them all in the right positions. We all want Bobby Reed to score. We all want Bobby Reed to play, but what's his best position? And it's becoming infuriating. It's kind of like, why do we not have a settled 11? And that doesn't help.
Yeah, and I noticed actually a couple of times I was with my mate watching the game at the match live, and Bobby and Cav just switched a couple of times. They switched from, Gav on the left and Bobby on the right, and they switched around again. So it just seems like, there's a sort of very chancy sort of vibe going on there, but who knows? I mean, let's talk about the main issue here, and it happened very early on. This is the injury to Joe Bryan after a collision with Bowler, or who cares? But what are your thoughts? I mean, because it's inevitable that it's the one position we haven't got enough cover in. We always said if Joe Bryan gets injured, we're done for. He's injured, and we were done for. I mean, what are your thoughts, Matt Domm, on this? I mean, this is now a position that has left us incredibly exposed.
Yeah, it's a big worry because certainly earlier in the season, he's been one of our better players going forward. He creates a lot of chances from that left flank, and it's a different kind of attack than the two wingers that play in front of him. He can cross, and it's just a different option that we've got. Le Marchand gets a nosebleed when he gets anywhere near the halfway line. Attackingly, he's absolutely awful. And he takes his eye off the ball too much at the back as well. So if he has to play it on the left flank for any extended period of time, I'll be worried. I don't know what the answer is. I don't think we've heard yet what the state of Brian's injury is, but hopefully it's not too bad. But I don't know what's the other option. I suppose Adoy on the left, but I've got a real problem with fullbacks playing on the wrong flank. I know Adoy started as a left back and he joined us as left back, but I hate it because you lose that width. They have to come inside to play on their stronger foot, and you lose that width, and that's what Joe Bryan would have. So I don't think that would help us at all. I think we're in real trouble if it turns out he's out for a long time.
Well, I mean, we don't know the extent of the injury yet, but Marty, I'll come to you on this. I mean, it's actually quite statistically true now. I know, I got a bit of stick from this from Frenchie on the group, because we keep conceding goals quite frequently. A huge, I'm not going to make up a percentage here, but maybe 80% of the goals we conceded are from that little position between left back and left centre back. Even though a lot of them, granted, have been assisted from the other side, the goals are conceded from there. I mean, every goal we conceded this game was conceded from that position. Is this something actually that was always a problem to begin with, do you reckon?
But how is this the problem? Because obviously it's Joe Bryan's position, and as Matt said, he's definitely one of our best players, and we've been crying out to have a backup left back. Obviously, Mr. Garm was at the game, and every time he turns up to a game, we seem to lose 3-0 at home. That's statistically true. It was highlighted, wasn't it, on social media by the amount of goals we've conceded in that one side, and it's quite worrying that what are they looking at on the training field when they're seeing that's where it's coming from the whole time, like it's their weak point. Is it players not tracking back to help out in that defensive area? Is it because the balls are being whipped from the right into that area? I don't know. I'm not a defensive genius. We have a defensive coach. Why is it not being sorted? I really don't understand.
Yeah, it just seems like something that obviously maybe Stuart Gray's running out of ideas of, because he's still, meant to be our defensive coach. But let's talk about Hull. And I don't want to make us sound we lost because we were awful. I think Hull were actually very good in this game. I think they completely dominated us with a very good style of counter-attacking. And the first goal was pure counter-attack. It was Krasicki flying down, looked like a blatant... actually, I'll get your thoughts on this, Mr. Domm. Was this a foul, potentially? Because I've heard people thinking that Le Marchand was pushed. I didn't see a push personally. I think this was just really terrible defending. I don't think... what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it'd be a very generous free kick, I think. It was almost like... who was the guy who scored? Bowler, as he said. Don't really care. Yeah. Exactly. Sort of just bounced off him, really. It wasn't a push. He just created a bit of space. The ball went up in the air. Le Marchand turns his back, so he's got no idea where it is. And it ends up going in. But I think that's obviously a big mistake from Le Marchand. But before that, I don't want to see Alfie Mawson charging up to the halfway line missing a sliding tackle, because that's where it started from. Either grab the player by the arm, take him down, get a yellow card, or just stay on your feet and defend it, because he was never getting to that ball. I don't know why he thought he was, but that's where it all started. And I know we're kind of talking about that position of the pitch. And I think Mawson had one of his worst games for us because he was terrible. And I think he's been okay this season, but that was really poor. I think all 3 goals you can actually point to him for a mistake.
Yeah, Mawson, I think he's been a bit hit and miss, but he's had mostly a good season up until this point. What are your thoughts on Mawson, Marty? And also just the general feeling of Maxime Le Marchand when he came. I mean, he comes on and then he just gets smacked in the face and just doesn't look like he knows what planet he's on when the ball goes in, even before or after.
Well, it's a hard thing to say. I mean, I feel Maxime Le Marchand it was like a deer in headlights, wasn't he? I mean, He just had the awful game. He was turned around for one of the goals where he was looking up in the air and then he looked down and the ball was in the net. The Alpha Mawson thing that Matt was talking about, it was spot on. It was just so reckless. You just see this ball come up the halfway line and this player comes flying in and completely misses. And you think, who the bloody hell is that? And then you realise it's, Mawson. And he was just having a very strange game. And I know we've been talking about it before that we have a player coming in called Michael Hector. But if Mawson continues this sort of reckless defending and being caught out of position, he's definitely going to be the player he's going to be replacing, which, at the end of the day, we spent big money on Mawson. And you're kind of hoping he'll be the mainstay in the team, just a nice solid back. But sometimes it's just like they've never played with each other at all at the back.
Yeah, and Mitro seemed to have quite a dodgy game. Tom Kearney certainly did. We'll talk about him in a minute. But Mitro should have equalised in the first half. In the first injury time in the first half. He headed wide from a corner. Now, our corners and set pieces are just not good enough, are they, Matt Domm? I mean, I just never feel anything's going to fucking happen from them.
No, that's it's been that way for a long time. Certainly before we went down the first time, actually. I can't ever remember us being a threat, really, since Breda Hangeland left, to be honest. I don't know whether it's the fact that our centre-backs have never really been giants since then. But, we just don't seem to have any decent set-piece takers. I thought Knockout's probably the best one we've got at the moment, but obviously he wasn't playing, so, he can't be crossing them in from the bench. But Mitrovic should be heading out on target, I think. It's actually a decent ball in. And he had another chance before that, but then he hit kind of straight at the keeper from an angle. Another day he might have got both of those, but really those are only 2 chances. And when you've got 75% of the ball, you can't only create 2 chances, and one of them being from the set piece. I don't know what's wrong with our corners and our free kicks. Alfie Mawson took a free kick from 30 yards a few weeks ago, so that tells you what sort of state we're in there.
Yeah, exactly. And you say, I've got the exact stats here. 74.9% possession to their 25.1. 8 total shots we had to their 10. And we had 1 flipping shot on target to their 5. 0 clear-cut chances, 1 for them. 7 out of 40 successful crosses, 1 out of 8 for them. It beggars belief how with this style we just aren't creating the sort of performance we should be, especially at home. Marty, I'm going to go to you. Let's talk about the second goal. Literally from their end to ours, the Pratt with the ponytail, Irvin, has about, 1,000 meters of space all around him. Makes a great through ball to 2 bloody Bowen, who I told you about, Matt Domm, played as a striker today, then switched to the right side for this, but made a lovely dummy and completely flips Mawson and scores this great second goal. We allowed them so much space, don't you think, Marty?
Yeah, it's just, as I said before, it's almost like they've never played before. It just seems to be the same continuous broken record of last season. You sent me a link of the one of the highlights, which was the Hull's perspective, and the commentator said another
Tiger TV.
Yeah, basically, they're saying it was another comical goal by Fulham conceding, and I was just thinking, he's right. We're a laughing stock at this point. Like they're literally.
Did they actually say that?
Yeah, I think by the time obviously we haven't got to the point, but a certain ponytail player getting his third goal, that literally was just dire at that point.
That's a different ponytail. There's 2 ponytails in that team. It's disgusting.
Yeah, I know. But do you know what I mean? It's just, you see someone in that team and you're just thinking, right, well, we should keep him in check. And then unfortunately we don't. We just seem to be just tore wide open. They've got all the spaces. It's kind of like, it reminds me of the Luton game where we should have had that one easily, and yet we kept inviting Luton in by making stupid mistakes by holding the ball for too long. As you said, we had the ball for 75% possession and had one shot on target, and they had the ball for 25%, had 5 shots on target to our 1. I mean, that right there is something to worry about.
I mean, what do you think, Matt? Domm? It was quite a good game plan by them. It's quite odd. This style of football that we're meant to, the perfect way of playing the beautiful game, it can be quite boring when you actually see it played so effectively when it's countered by them. Do you see what I mean? The counter-attacking done by Hull was fantastic, and their passing was brilliant. And not to mention, Jared Bowen.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know what? Jared Bowen's an excellent player. You were calling for us to sign him at the start of the season, and I don't know whether it was realistic for us to do that with Tom Kenny in the team and the likes. But yeah, he certainly ran the game. What was the question?
Don't worry. I just wanted to be smug about the Jared Bowen.
Oh, no.
What we could do is, I'll say that Jared Bowen did switch to the right-hand side for this game, for that goal. And why is that so important? Because it was to make room for the 6'4" Tom Eaves. And now let's talk about his goal in the third. This is the most. Just tell me about it. Your reaction. No, you have to. It's awful.
It's one of the worst goals I've ever seen us concede. And there's a hell of a lot on that list. But this guy was running around up front for Gillingham last season. And that League One is his level. He scored quite a few goals in League One, but there's no chance he's a Championship player. And to leave him free, I don't know whether it was Mawson or Lemarchand who was supposed to be marking him. But they just sort of let him run free. Maybe they thought, this guy's rubbish. He's not going to score if Betts makes this save. But first of all, I mean, the save, Betts needs to be putting it somewhere else apart from the feet of a striker, I think. It wasn't the most powerful shot. Just sort of try and push it around the post or away from danger. But that's not the big problem. And then Tom Eaves tries to control it and falls over. But he gets enough of a heavy touch on it that it rolls into the net. And then Betts or Mawson, one of those has got to be stopping it, and then they end up getting in each other's way, and no one digs it out from under the bar, and they've given up. And I don't know, is that it? I've pretty much summed it up, I think.
That's fine. I'll go to Mike. Well, the thing is, it was Jared Bowen who actually did all the work up until that point. And then he takes a shot at Marcus, because Jared Bowen's amazing, but he takes a shot at Marcus Bettinelli, and it ricochets of Marcus Bettinelli, and then Tom Eaves tries to control it, as you say, and then just falls over and managed to tap it in. And this is when we went 3 at the back. So we had 3 centre-backs. Jared Bowen went past 3 centre-backs like it was no one's business. And, Betts... Let's talk about, I don't know.
What I will say, so one thing to add to that, I don't understand how we have so much of the ball. The other team, when we've got 70, 75% of the ball, are sitting back so much. How does it end up that we're always caught out 3 against 3 at the back? Surely we should have men back there. Where are the runners defending? I don't understand where they disappear, where the midfield goes.
Don't know. It just seems like we're massively exposed and open at the goal at the back. And they run like there's no one there. Marcus Bettinelli obviously tries to do his best to save it while Mawson's running towards him, and takes the worst deflection ever for a player who's falling down midair like Matrix style in slow motion, and manages to somehow get his head to it for it to roll into the. It could have gone about 1 mile an hour into the goal and it would still roll in. It was just awful. It really was. It was just like, that just sums us up at the back. It really does. It was just not good.
Well, I could tell you what, I've never seen so many people leave a stadium at the same time until that moment. It was quite extra. Like, everyone was just like, I'm done. And like, everyone just left. It was funny, but also really tragic. Betts' reaction, obviously, it's a terrible goal to concede, and you can see him. I remember vividly, you could see in the highlights as well, him just sort of like, just rolling back on his back, just being like, oh, give me a break. I think his confidence must be really shot now. We've had the whole debate about a new goalkeeper in January, but it's looking more and more likely, wouldn't you say, Matt Domm?
It's looking more and more likely that we need one, but
yes,
I honestly don't think we'll get a new keeper in January.
Okay.
I can't say exactly why, but I get the impression that it's not seen as a problem area, even though personally I think it has been for a few years. I don't think Betts is good enough. I don't think he's a top of the Championship kind of player, or a Premier League player, which is what we kind of need to command the defence. I think our main defensive problems are come from the fact that we don't really have a holding midfielder.
Yeah.
Kevin McDonald kind of held that when it was McDonald, Kearney, Johansson. We had Johansson as a runner. We had Kearney as a playmaker. We had McDonald just sitting there. We don't have that. We sort of play a more kind of two central midfielders, and when they're Arter and Harrison Reed and Stefan Johansson, take your pick out of two of those. They work hard, they run a lot, but they're not very positionally aware. And I think that might be where our main problem is coming from. The other teams can find that space in that position where Tom Kearney would be if he was playing for the other team. And we're really exposed in that area of the pitch. And obviously the defence will then, they can either go for the ball or back off like Mawson did for the second goal, and it ends up, they can't make the right decision because they're so exposed. So yeah. I think that's probably, I know you asked about the keepers, but I still think we need a proper holding midfielder.
I think you might be right. I think you're definitely right. And, it's the first goal with Mawson making that high tackle at the halfway line suggests everything that we are exposed in that area. You're quite right. Marty, what are your thoughts? Because Kearney had a really off day. I mean, his passing, particularly in the first half, was poor. I don't think he ran particularly much. I mean, does he only influence games when he's scoring, do you think? I mean, I've heard rumours that him and Mitro arrived to the cottage looking very bummed out, but that was just from Danny Boy. I'm not sure. I think he heard it from someone else. But what are your thoughts on Tom Kearney this game? Pretty poor show from him, though.
Yeah, if he plays well, we play well. I think the only contribution he did was where he fell down in the penalty area. We
sat down.
Yeah. Well, yeah, almost. I can't even figure out how he fell back. He didn't seem to protest about when he was down either. We've had sort of two times where it looked like we had penalties, but yet you don't see anyone moaning about it on social media. So you just know it was just one of those games of like, oof, I can't even vouch that was a penalty. But yeah, he was just disappeared. Mitrovic seemed off. As if Danny Boy is right that there's something not right in that those two coming in, then what's going on in camp? It's big concern. But at the moment, it's just speculation, I suppose.
Oh, it's just a sexy story. Danny loves a sexy story. We all know that.
Going on the goalkeeper front, I just feel I think you're totally right. I think Marcus Bettinelli's running low on confidence. Rodak is probably going to be running low on confidence. Can we bring a keeper in? I don't know. I think due to financial fair play, that might make it a little bit difficult. I don't know if we can bring someone in on loan, but then who do you bring in? We haven't had a solid goalkeeper since Swartzer. But yet again, it's another broken record of something we keep talking about.
Yeah, and with that, we'll move swiftly off. So let's talk about, we've talked about Kearney had a bad day. Steph Joe and Harrison Reed. Harrison Reed, for all the team's flaws in this game of like being just generally terrible and shit, I thought Harrison Reed was doing all the movement he could for what he, But there was a moment where Johansson made an absolutely classic Stefan Johansson tackle. Do you know what I'm talking about, Marty? Do you see that?
Pretty much Steph Joe being Steph Joe. That's what you missed. It was. Yeah. And the thing is, Harrison Reed, I've really enjoyed him coming into the team. I think he's been a really good player. And even we were playing poorly, I felt he did well. But seeing that Steph Joe thing just made me smile, basically.
Yeah, and it's quite a strange one to actually. One of the best highlights of a game is when your player nearly could potentially injure another player, and we all find it quite arousing as Fulham fans. It's quite odd. But yeah, and look, I'm going to raise a question to you here, Mr. Domm. Do you think there's ever a case for dropping Mitrovic for the benefit of the team, or are we just going to run him into the ground out of these 46 games? Do you think there's a potential that we should maybe ever so often replace him in the 80th minute just to bring that something extra on?
Yeah, this is a good point. He plays an awful lot of football.
Yeah.
When Fulham are on a break, he's bagging goals for Serbia, isn't he? He plays for about 2 or 3 times every time there's an international break. and then obviously international tournaments in the summer. And he's still pretty young. He's playing a lot of football. I think definitely it's tricky. If you asked me a month or two ago, I'd have said Mitro is the first name on the team sheet, and he probably is.
Yeah,
but when we're struggling to break down a compact defence and you've got two inverted wingers and it all gets a bit cramped up there, what you need is someone who can run in behind and stretch them. And Bobby Reid is that player, and he's not a winger. I see him playing alongside Mitro, really. But if it's a replacement for Mitro, then so be it, as a different option. But he needs to play up front for me, and I think we've got a really good option in Bobby Reid if we want to mix it up and go a bit more direct and go a bit more, over the top or behind the defence or something, just to create space, because we're passing it around. And you look at the third goal before they scored, there was no movement. I think AK had the ball and no one really wanted it, and then he sort of fell over and then they scored from it. But that really summed up how it gets when we get clogged with the ball. A runner in behind will keep the defence on their toes, and I certainly think there's an opportunity to rest Mitro and play Bobby Reid instead.
And I think a huge feeling from all the fans. I'll read a couple of tweets from certain people. Leighton Williams, take a bow. We're too slow in moving the ball forward, so other teams know they can drop deep and set up defensively. Then, in the final third, we want to play too many little passes, particularly across the pitch, instead of putting crosses in for Mitro. That's one. The other one is possession with a purpose is great. This is from Mr. Keith G. Possession with a purpose is great. We seem to have it for the sake of it. We actually look scared to take a higher risk ball now in case we lose possession. In essence, we're becoming an easy team to play against as teams allow us to pass amongst ourselves in no risk areas. And another one is we're so slow in the build-up. Teams are compact, and it means we just pass across the box more and more. So it seems, and I've just heard it from a lot of mates outside the game afterwards, that it is speed that is the problem. Would you agree speed is the problem, Marty? Because sometimes that doesn't actually count, because we're still not taking chances. Does that go hand in hand with the speed problem of our game, do you think?
100%. Like, I feel like a lot of people, when you kind of leaving the ground, people are saying there was just nothing created up front, and considering everyone said when we signed Knockhart and Ivan and Mitro, you think, oh my God, look at this. This is going to be deadly. And yet, do you actually remember anything? And the thing is, it's almost like teams sit back, wait for us to just make that mistake by all the possession that we've got. Like Matt Domm was saying, if you had someone like Mitrovic being like the Bobby Zamora type of striker, holding the ball up, then have Bobby Reid as like the Andrew Johnson striker to run on the balls that he keeps up and passes on, work something like that. But for some reason, they just want to play Bobby Reid at the side, as a winger. It kind of beggars belief that we need to change this plan. Like, this plan is not working. It's just, teams have sussed us out. And as I say, we're just, it's another game where we could have won it at home and been a lot better in the league. And instead we're sliding down the wrong side of the league because people have sussed us out.
Do you think that Parker is not giving players the confidence or the mental freedom to take chances better, Matt Domm? Is it a speed thing? I mean, what do you think Parker needs to do now to slightly up his game? Because the clock is now very firmly ticking for him, I think.
Yeah, I mean, as much as you guys know, I wasn't a big fan of appointing him in the first place, but I don't think his time is running short. I imagine he's got quite a bit more time to sort this out. Maybe a defeat at Birmingham might start putting him under a bit of pressure, but it's really hard because it's sort of, as we've said, he's trying to squeeze Bobby Reid into the team, and it's not working. It was working a bit better when it was Mitro, Cav, and Knockout up there, but it's sometimes you just need to be a bit more direct and change it up. I'm not saying long balls forward or anything like that, but we need more runs in behind, and yeah, that probably does tie back into the speed issue. We don't have a lot of pace, and I think one of the most damning stats actually against Hull was we had something like 46 crosses. I think it was something ridiculous like that, and they had 8. It just goes to show that we pass it around, run out of ideas. Oh, Mitro's quite good in the air. Let's see if he can get a goal by lobbing it into the box. And it doesn't work. And there's a real lack of ideas. And I don't know what Scott could do to change it, to be honest. Maybe it's the wrong players for the wrong system. Everything tells me that this team is built to play possession and attacking, exciting football, but it just doesn't seem to be working.
Well, the only thing I can add to that is just how are we lacking pace when we have someone like Anthony Knockhart and Ivan in the team, who are like two of the fastest players in the team, and yet we look so slow. And it's just like, why are we so slow?
Because we're cutting in, potentially, wouldn't you think, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just mad, isn't it? It's really crazy. Like, I was so excited when we signed Anthony Knockhart and Ivan. I thought, we've got two players who can create so much, just whip a nice ball into Mitrovic and he can do the rest. And yet that's not what we're seeing on the football field at the moment.
Yeah. And if you try and replicate go on, Matt, Domm.
I was going to say what I thought we were getting from Cavallero was the championship version of Ryan Babel. Because our fortunes improved so much last season when we got Babel into the team, and he sort of played off the left, but really up alongside Mitro, and they got a really good understanding, and he scored a lot of goals from cutting in from the left. I thought we were getting that from Cavallero, but it seems to be we're playing too much in front of the defence, and no one's getting in behind.
So some tinkering needs to happen, doesn't it? And I'm not sure exactly what he does. It's just weird because you're trying to replicate a style of football that got us promoted with Slav, and it's just we had Ryan Fredericks and we had Matty Targett, and Matty Targett and Ryan Fredericks are absolutely not to the same standard as Dennis Adoy, and certainly not now MLM. So we'll see what happens because we don't overlap. He wants a lot more cautious style of play, Scott Parker. And while you have cautious fullbacks, it means that it's all down to these inverted cutting in wingers, and that doesn't do anything for you. So it's very strange. It's a strange situation.
Yeah, I think the lack of pace is a big one. As you say, teams can defend narrow, they can defend deep, and then we run into players in the box, in and around the box, and crosses come in from deep, and they can head them away easily and break. There's no threat.
They just know what to do against us now. I think teams just know exactly what to do. I think Hull. Watching Hull, they were so well organised. I mean, you couldn't fit a pin through their defence. It was absolutely sublime to watch. Ironically, because I wasn't supporting them, but you know what I mean. It's a strange one. It's a really strange one. I mean, I'll go to you quickly lastly on this, Marty. Do you think Matt Domm seems confident that Scott Parker is definitely could lose Brum and still actually have some time left? What are your thoughts on that? And you've got QPR around the corner. If that's a loss or something dodgy as well, that could really step things up, couldn't it?
Yeah, and the thing is, the pressure is on him, but I agree with Dom. I don't think he's under pressure from the Khans. I mean, it probably didn't impress them very much that we didn't win.
They were there.
He's had... Yeah, exactly. And we've had 2 games now where we've had this sort of situation where we had a goalkeeper go off due to a red card, and now we've had a player go off to an injury. So 2 of those are almost sort of situations where they can go, well, he was kind of dealt with a difficult situation. Going back to what we were just talking about, we're not good at the back as it is, and we're not scoring up front. So if both those situations don't sort themselves out, then of course we're going to get sussed. People are just going to think, well, if they keep mucking around with their ropey defence and they're not scoring, then it's going to be no problem for anyone. We could speculate all we want about who we would like in, and do we want Slav back? And isn't that a great football? We don't have the flying left back and a right back, like you said, Jmac. But it's we still don't have a settled 11 yet as well, which is how many games does he need? And now we've had a rotating goalkeeper situation. So, Bettinelli made that mistake. Will Roddick be walking back into the team as he served his suspension? I mean, it's all up in the air. I reckon the pressure is definitely on Scott Parker, but we need to show up at Birmingham and at least get 3 points, because we're starting to slide down the wrong end of the table.
And, we're a third of the way in now. I think we're officially a third of the way into the season, and 4 points from from potential 12 points in games that were all winnable isn't good reading. But I think you're right. And with that, I mean, we'll see what happens. I think it could just be a case we just still need to get into third gear. There is time, but it is really running out, and so is a lot of patience, including my own, because I've always been a big fan of Scott Parker, as you all know. Right, Scott Parker rating out of 10. What would you give him, Mr. Domm?
I mean, because the players weren't any good, they let him off slightly, but I think it's a 4 for me. It was a really, really poor performance. I didn't have too much problem with the starting lineup, although, as we discussed, Bobby Reid isn't a winger. I'd have preferred to see Knockout in there. And, you know, the defence, what can you do? I mean, the players aren't... I don't think we've got a very good defence, and that's not really his fault. But the way the game went and the way that he wasn't able to change it or come up with any new ideas, it's a 4.
Yeah, I think I'll go for a 4 as well. And I just think, for going 3 at the back was a bit of a dodgy call as well. Marty, what was your number for Scott Parker, mate?
It's a hat trick, 4.
Nice.
I thought his substitutions were a bit strange as well, to be honest with you. Okay, I understand Joe Bryan one was a forced one, but the other 2 could have really made a difference. Is that an experience thing? I just felt the 2 substitutions he brought in at that point, I was just like, what is he doing? And I think a lot of other people in the stadium were thinking the same.
Something that's something that a lot of people are saying about Scott Parker as well, that his substitutions are found quite wanting at times. But guys, look, let's call it a day there. Enough of that shite. We're going to have to just see what happens at Birmingham and then cry about it then. But after this, we've got the quiz. Fulham. And welcome back. It's time for the quiz, Danny Boy's quiz. If you're listening at home, you can get a total of 24 points. And for my lovely co-hosts here, they can get a total of 16 points. All right, we're going to do round 1. And round 1 is going to be called the Harry Arter School of, was it this one or was it that one? In light of his recent political scandal of not knowing. So, very good, Danny. Very good. So, question 1. Well, actually, first, I have to ask, which one of you... I'll go to you, Dom, because you laughed. Which set of questions would you like? Set 1 or set 2?
Set 1.
Set 1. All right, cool. Set 1, question 1. Here we go. Which Ryan made more appearances for Fulham? Was it this one, Ryan Fredericks, or was it that one, Ryan Sessegnon?
I think because we had him in the Premier League as well, I've got to go with Sessegnon.
Ding, ding. That is absolutely correct. Very good, sir. That is 1 point to you. And second question. Both players were capped by France, but which one wasn't playing for his country of birth? So both players were capped by France, but which one wasn't playing for his country of birth? Was it this one, Martin Dejetu, or was it that one, Philippe Christenval?
I'm going to go with Jetu.
That is absolutely correct. It was Jetu. He was from the Ivory Coast, born in the Ivory Coast, and Philippe Christenval was born in Paris. So that's 2 points for you, Mr. Domm. All right, question 3, last question here. Which local rival do we have the most wins against in all competitions? Is it this one, QPR, or is it that one, Brentford?
Oh, that's hard. That's a very hard one. I'm going to go with Brentford.
That's absolutely correct. It is Brentford with 21 wins compared to QPR's 16 wins. Very good. All right, Marty, it's on to you with set 2. All right, question 1 of this one, that one. Which manager won more games in charge of Fulham? Which manager won more games in charge of Fulham? Was it this one, Roy Hodgson, or was it that one, Slavisa Jokanovic?
Oh, God, that's really good. I'm going to go this one, Roy Hodgson.
It's not that one. Unfortunately, it's Slavisa Jokanovic with 64 wins. Roy Hodgson had 50 wins under his belt when in charge of Fulham. So unlucky there, Mr. Marty, but there is time to rectify this. Question 2. Who has the more followers on Twitter at the moment? Brilliant. Who has the more followers on Twitter at the moment? Is it this one, the official Fulham account, or that one, Jimmy Bullard? Don't look.
I'm gonna say Fulham. I can't say Jimmy. Sorry.
Oh, you should have said Jimmy, because it was Jimmy Bullard, which is mad. Jimmy Bullard has 617.1k followers, and the official Fulham account has 506.7k up until this point. We'll see.
Jesus.
I picked set one up, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. So question 3. Who has scored more goals for Fulham? Is it this one, Dimitar Berbatov, or is it that one, Stefan Johansson? Which one?
It's got to be Berbatov, right?
Dimitar Berbatov scored 21 goals, and Stefan Johansson has scored 22 goals. I'm afraid you're wrong. I'm so sorry. Okay, that is 3-0. 3-0. You shouldn't have said the hat trick earlier. It's gone completely against you with the Parker ring. All right, round two. Round 2, Focus Fortunes, game of thrown away leads. Dun, 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 dun. So taking it in turns, you have 5 guesses each to name the last 10 occasions in all competitions when Fulham have been leading a match but failed to hold on to that lead. So it's basically like back and forth. And all 10, I'll give you a clue here, all 10 have come in the last 2 seasons. So it's quite modern. You've got 2 seasons, so it's not like we're going back 50 years or anything like that. So I hope that makes sense to you guys, and we'll start with Marty, because he needs the points at the moment. Marty, name a team first.
Okay, I'm going to go with one from last season, which was a game we needed to win last season, and we scored an absolute worldie, but we still lost it, and that was Burnley.
Burnley is absolutely correct. Burnley, it was 2-1. Burnley, it was 2-1 to Burnley on January 2019 with a Schürrle wonder goal. You're absolutely right. So a point for you there, Marty. All right, and for you, Mr. Domm, name me a team.
We're including this season, right?
Ooh, in the last 2 seasons. Ooh, yes, we are. We are.
Okay. In that case, West Brom.
West Brom. Calling West Brom. That is absolutely correct. It was Fulham. Fulham won, West Bromwich Albion won in September this season. Very good, Mr. Domm. And Marty, your next guess, please.
I'm going to say Cardiff.
Cardiff, yes, indeed. Cardiff 4-2 on October 2018. That was a terrible, terrible football match. And Mr. Domm, to you.
I'm going to say the other one I can remember from this season. Sheffield Wednesday.
Sheffield Wednesday is absolutely correct. Sheffield Wednesday won, Fulham won in September this year as well. This is nice. All right, and Marty, third guess for you.
I'm trying to think of a team now that we played this season and we've screwed it up against. It's only defeats, not draws, isn't it?
I think it can be draws.
Charlton Athletic. I think we went behind, actually. I might have got that one wrong.
I'm afraid you have got that wrong. Charlton Athletic is I can't say athletic. It's nowhere to be seen, unfortunately. I'm sorry, Marty. So, right, Dom, time for you to capitalize on this. Third guess for you.
I don't think I'm going to. I have to say Brighton. Yeah, Brighton, because that was early last season, but I don't know if there's been others since then.
Say no more. Brighton is absolutely correct. 2-2 in September 2018, and we were 2-0 up. Yeah, that was when everything seemed to go downhill for us last season, it seems. Right, that's lovely. And for you, Marty, fourth guess for you, sir.
I'm going to say... I've got to say Tottenham. Let's just go random guesses now.
Well, you know what? That's a very good guess because Tottenham is completely correct. The final score was 2-1 to Spurs at home at Fulham at Craven Cottage, and it was in January 2019. It was the Llorente own goal in that game. So very good. And Mr. Domm, your fourth guess, please.
Damn it, that was the other one I knew.
You have to guess a team.
I think I got one. Wolves didn't Sessegnon score, and then they equalised straight away.
Well, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, Fulham won, Wolves won on Boxing Day 2018. Very good, Mr. Domm. Marty, final guess for you, sir.
I'm going to say QPR.
Hold on, let me just check this. QPR is not on the list for the last 2 seasons. I am very sorry. Never mind. And for you, Mr. Domm, last question. Last guess.
Pick a random Premier League team. Southampton.
Southampton is not on the list, I'm afraid, unfortunately, Mr. Domm. You nearly had 5 out of 5 there. No, unfortunately not. The other ones you could have had were obviously, well, not obviously, because you didn't know them and neither did I. West Ham 1, Fulham 1, February 2019, where Babel scored after 2 minutes. And you could have had, you said Burnley, you could have had Oldham Athletic in the FA Cup in January 2019, where Oldham Athletic won 2-1 at Craven Cottage. And you could have had Leicester City, Fulham 1, Leicester City 1 on December 2018. And I believe that's all of them. So you guys got a good hefty amount. You guys got 7 in total. But that means in total, Marty has 3 and Matt Domm has 7. So there is all to play for in the final round. And the final round is, as you know, guess the player. All right, and the rules are I lay out facts, and if you get fact number 1, you get 8 points. If you get from fact number 2, 7 points, and so on and so forth. So I will start as we go. So it's guess the player, fingers by your imaginary buzzer. This player is 6 foot tall. Mm-hmm. Fulham were his 3rd English club. Next fact. He made 153 appearances in all competitions. Mm-hmm. He retired from the game in 2010. Mm-hmm. He won a gold medal representing his country at the 2002 Olympics. Mm-hmm. He came off the bench to score on his Fulham debut at Loftus Road. Oh.
I don't know. I'm going to have a go.
Go on.
Inamoto.
Inamoto, I'm freezing you there and we'll find out.
He's not 6 foot tall, is he? For fuck's sake.
Well, never mind. Next one. He was the club captain.
Lewis Bournemouth?
Yeah.
Okay. And the final fact, I'll freeze you there. The final fact, only Clint Dempsey has scored more Premier League goals for Fulham. I'm going to say that again. I sounded drunk. Only Clint Dempsey has scored more Premier League goals for Fulham. Take a bow, Brian McBride.
Oh.
Yeah. There you are.
The gold medal threw me. Completely
yeah,
threw
me. I know. I thought we had this one before, but evidently not. All right, so that makes Matt Domm has 7 and Marty has 3. So, Matt, as your present, we will give you a beautiful stuffed tiger. How do you feel about that?
Great. Thank you so much.
Rawr. Excellent. All right, thank you very much to my lovely co-host. Thank you for listening. And if you like what you hear, please tell your friends about us. We are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, we are on Twitter, and we are also on Spotify and Apple iTunes, the regular stuff. We will be back in a few days' time to have a little player focus and also to preview the Birmingham game. Come on, you Whites. See you soon.
Fulham.